Hey guys, so today we're going to talk a little bit about a great comment I got this morning, so let's get into it. And the comment was by a person who was, let's just say that he had felt a bit of frustration because he's been looking around on the internet and trying to find the actual reason as to why he should use Golang. And he expressed that it was kind of refreshing. It was one of my old videos that he had looked at, and he said that it was very refreshing to have somebody actually try to explain what Go is kind of about and the origins and the things that it does really well and the things that it doesn't also do so well and so forth, as opposed of having just another person who's going to join in on the circle jerk of how great the syntax is, how great the performance is, and yada 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 yada. And the thing is that when he said this, it made me kind of happy, because this is exactly the sort of thing that I try to fight, and it's the sort of thing that I urge any, if you are a responsible professional, I think that this is something that you should consider every single time that you join in on any type of hype train. You should be aware of that you are on a hype train, and then we have to define, of course, what is a hype train. It depends on your definition, but what I think is very important for us to remember is that the thing that you are excited about, unless you can look every single person who asks about your language in the eye and say, this thing here is a really good investment for career purposes, I think that it is vital that you say so. If you love a language above all else, you can talk about it, you can promote it and so forth, and I do that too. But I think that it is possible to do that without crossing that magic line between, okay, what is your personal emotional interest in the language and what is good advice for career purposes. Because the thing is, it doesn't really matter to not every single person who talks to you about whichever language that you're interested in cares why you like it. They're curious about the language. Give them some objective advice about the language. Explain why it's used, how it's used, and above all else, make sure that they have a realistic view of the language, because at this point, Go is a good example in this. At this point, I think it's hilarious that this language, the Go, has been hyped to the point where everybody talks about it, but almost nobody uses it in the industry. That's PR for you right there. Programmer PR. You have and Google does this better than anybody else. They did the same thing with Angular, and they're going to try to do the same thing with Flutter. This is how these massive companies get you invested in the platform. But this is a little bit, it might be a bit sensitive, but I think it's worth saying. If you are a true professional, if you really are a professional, then you should have the personal maturity and the level-headedness and the objectivity to take a step back from the thing that you really like and say, this is something that I'm personally very invested in. I really like this. But that does not mean that it is the best thing for career purposes, or it's not the best thing for this situation or that situation. Because the thing is, guys, the old saying, if you only have a hammer, then every problem is a nail. It's the same principle. If you do not possess the ability to take a step back from your favorite language and say, this is what it does well and this is what it does really poorly, then I don't think you should be a person who goes out and gives advice to somebody. Or rather, you can give advice if somebody is really interested in that one language and they just want to know how awesome it is. That's great, and you can join in on the hype. Let's just call it that. But if you want to give proper career advice and actually help people out, I think it's important that you're more objective than that. Because the one thing that I know from been doing this for quite some time is that there are such a varying degree of people, and they all, everybody wants to go into programming, or they're interested in different programming languages for their own reason. And I've there's very little you can make in terms of assumptions, and I always try to start the conversation by simply asking, okay, why do you want to learn programming? What is your interest? What's the goal with it? Because when I understand the goal, then I can tell them whether or not it's a good investment to use Go or Rust or Ruby or whichever language they're interested in. Because often I find that what's happened, and that's why it seems that people want to talk to somebody who can have that ability, who doesn't represent Google, because you cannot go to Google and ask them for an objective opinion, or like their engineers or the people who are working on Golang and ask them for an objective opinion on Go, because hey, they're invested in that platform. It's very, very hard to get a real answer from people like that. It's the same thing, it's the trust issue. If you go into a clothes shop and ask the clerk, do I look fat in the most expensive garment they have? They're not going to say yes. They're going to say you look beautiful. It's the same principle. It's very hard to trust that. And that's the thing that I try to go for, and it's the thing that I think is important. That you give people an objective, or you try at least. It's very hard to be objective all the time, of course, but you should. I think that's what's lacking here. People try to sell things more than they try to inform and educate. And that's the thing that made me very happy about this comment, where somebody has identified this issue and found that, hey, there are actually people out there who, guys, honestly, I don't care what you use. You can work in assembly for all I care. I couldn't care less. I'm just trying, whenever I try to give you advice about these sorts of things, it has to do with figuring out what I think is the best answer for you, not for me. I have nothing to, and that's the thing. Since I don't promote any specific language, and the same thing goes for other industry professionals, they have no interest in what you use. They're simply trying to inform you about options and trying to guide you in the right direction. But the people you have to be careful about are the evangelists, the people who push a specific language for their own reasons, because it's very, very hard to get a realistic view from these people. They're really good at selling the thing that they're selling, and they will gladly claim that it can do anything. And that's why I have a very hard time working or talking to opinionated people, because you can't reason with an opinionated person, because they will. It's almost a religious thing. They like the thing that they like, and they have just emotionally decided that that's the whole story, and that's, in my world, not a great thing. And it's almost a little bit unengineering, it's almost the reverse of what I think software development should be about. Software development in my world is about solving problems, using logic, rationality, and technology to solve real human problems. And what they're doing is basically religion. It's the complete opposite. In my world, your programming language is just a tool for you to solve problems. That's it. So what I want you to take away from this is that when you take advice from somebody, even if it's me, it doesn't matter who it is, always make sure that you have a very clear understanding what the intentions and the motivations of the person you're listening to is. In other words, if Google tells you that Angular is the best thing in the world, maybe you should be a little bit skeptical and look around a little bit first. But that doesn't mean that Angular is a bad thing. It's just, critical thinking, guys. Make sure that if you're just interested in the language, great, just go for it. Get on the hype train with everybody else. But if your goal is to be a professional, be a career programmer, and have a realistic understanding of both the good parts and the bad parts of every single language that you get interested in, then you need to have discussions with people who do not have a vested interest in getting you on board with their stuff. Have a great day.